Welcome back. Before we begin, I need you to brace yourself for what comes next. This is about what happens to ordinary people when dragons attack in Skyrim. Not heroes, not soldiers, not the Dragonborn, just civilians caught in the fire. You have heard the legends of Alduin, the prophecies, the epic battles on mountain peaks. But no one talks about the baker who watched his neighbors burn alive in Helgen. No one mentions the child left orphaned, staring at corpses in the street. No one discusses the merchant who lost everything and has no way to rebuild because Skyrim has no insurance, no safety net, no compensation for the victims of divine catastrophe. This is that story, the one history forgets, the testimony of someone who survived when everyone else died, a confession about cowardice, trauma, and the impossible weight of living when you should have died too. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest. I need you to know that I was there, not as a guard, not as a soldier. I was a baker in Helgen. I made bread. That was my crime, if you want to call it that. Being ordinary when the world decided to end. It started with a roar. Not the kind you hear from a bear in the woods or an angry drunk at the inn. This was different. This sound reached inside your chest and squeezed. It vibrated in your bones. I was kneading dough when I heard it. My hands white with flour, thinking about whether I had enough juniper berries for Vilod's next mead order. The roar came from somewhere above the mountain peaks, impossibly loud, and every dog in Helgen started howling at once. The first thing people do when they hear a sound like that is look up. That instinct will get you killed. I looked up anyway. We all did. Through my window, I could see the sky darken, not with clouds, but with something massive blotting out the sun. The temperature dropped. I remember that specifically because I was standing near the oven, had been warm just seconds before, and suddenly I could see my breath in the air. My hands were shaking. The dough fell to the floor. Someone outside started screaming. Not words, just screaming. By the time I made it to my door, the town square had become chaos. People were running in every direction with no direction at all. A mother clutching her child, an old man who fell and nobody stopped to help him up. The guards were shouting orders that nobody could hear over the noise of panic, and that sound, that roar that kept coming, louder each time. Then I saw it. Him, Alduin, the World Eater. Though I did not know his name then, I knew dragon. I knew black scales that seemed to drink light. I knew wings that stretched wider than 3 houses. I knew teeth the size of swords and eyes that burned with something older than hate. The Dragon War was supposed to be ancient history. Stories grandfather told to scare children. Not real, not possible. Not descending on my town with murder in every wing beat. He landed on the guard tower near the gate. The entire structure groaned under his weight. Stone cracked. I heard it crack. He opened his mouth, and the air itself seemed to catch fire. The scream that came from inside that burning was Torolf. I knew him. He owed me money for bread. He had 2 children. The sound he made when Alduin's fire breath hit him was not human. It started human and ended as something else. Something that will never leave my head, no matter how much mead I drink or how many years pass. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I am the only one who feels this way. The smell came next. You think you know what burning flesh smells like until you smell a lot of it at once, mixed with hair and leather and wood and everything else that makes up a town. It is sweet and wrong, and it gets into your lungs and stays there. I was vomiting on the ground, on my knees, trying to breathe through the smoke. Alduin was not just attacking, he was methodical, precise. He moved through Helgen like a farmer harvesting wheat. His fire breath swept across the market square, and everyone there simply stopped being people. They became shapes, charred shapes that used to have names. I saw Matlara, the woman who sold flowers, running for the temple. She almost made it. Almost. Alduin's tail swept across the street and turned her into a red smear on the stone. Her flowers scattered everywhere, bright petals on dark blood, and that detail feels important somehow, but I cannot tell you why. The guards tried to fight. They actually tried. Captain Marcus ordered them to form up, to ready their bows, to do something that resembled resistance. They fired arrows. The arrows bounced off Alduin's scales like rain. He looked at them, really looked at them, and I swear I saw amusement in those burning eyes before he opened his mouth again. This time, it was not fire. Meteors fell from the sky, Actual burning rocks from the heavens, summoned by his voice, by his Thuum. They crashed through roofs, through people, through everything. One hit the building next to me and the explosion threw me backward into a wall. My ears were ringing. Blood ran down my face. I could not hear anything except a high-pitched whine and distant screaming. Through the smoke and flame, I saw my neighbor Garrick. He was on fire, actually on fire, running in circles, slapping at his burning clothes. He ran straight into a collapsed building, and I never saw him come out. His shop was next to mine. We used to complain about taxes together. He had a daughter in Whiterun he was saving money to visit. The keep was burning. The inn was burning. Everything was burning. People talk about dragon attacks like they are battles. They are not battles. Battles have two sides. This was extermination. Alduin was not fighting us. We were not warriors or threats. We were insects he was stepping on. Prey, nothing more. And he did not care about innocence or guilt or who had done what to deserve this. We were there. That was enough. I found myself running without deciding to run. My body made the choice while my mind was still frozen. I ran past bodies. Some I recognized and some burned too badly to tell. I ran past a child crying over her mother who was not moving. I ran past it all because stopping meant dying and some animal part of me wanted to live. The walls of Helgen were supposed to protect us. That is what walls are for. But when a dragon can fly over them and rain fire from above, walls just trap you inside with death. I saw people trying to climb the walls, to claw their way up the stone with bloody fingers, anything to escape. Most of them died trying. I made it to the area near the keep. There was a hole in a wall, torn open by meteors, and through it, I could see the forest beyond. Freedom. Survival. I was almost there when I heard a voice I knew. Frida. She ran a small alchemy shop. Good woman. Kind. She was trapped under fallen timber from a collapsed building, pinning her legs. She saw me, made eye contact, reached out her hand. I ran past her. I did not stop. I did not try to help. I heard her screaming my name as I climbed through that hole in the wall and kept running into the forest. I heard her screaming until I did not hear her anymore. That was the choice. That is what dragon attacks do. They do not just destroy buildings and bodies. They destroy the person you thought you were. I hid in the forest for hours, maybe days. Time stopped working properly. I crouched behind a fallen log, shaking so hard my teeth chattered, watching the smoke rise from what used to be my home. The column of black smoke could be seen for miles. A funeral pyre for an entire town. For everyone I knew, the shaking would not stop. Even when I tried to hold my arms still, they trembled. My whole body was vibrating like a plucked string. I thought maybe it was the cold, but the summer air was warm. This was something else, something broken inside me, that would never be still again. When the smoke finally began to thin, when I could no longer hear screaming or roaring or the crash of falling stone, I went back. I do not know why. Maybe I thought I could find survivors. Maybe I needed to see it with my own eyes to believe it was real. Maybe I was hoping I would find it was all a nightmare. It was not a nightmare. Helgen was gone, not damaged. Gone. The buildings that still stood were hollow shells. Everything else was rubble and ash. The streets were carpeted with bodies or pieces of bodies. Some were burned beyond recognition. Others looked almost peaceful, like they had simply laid down to sleep, except for the expressions frozen on their faces. Terror. Pain. The last thing they ever felt. I found what was left of my bakery. The oven was still intact, still slightly warm. Everything else was ash. The timber beams had collapsed. My tools, my supplies, my life's work, all of it reduced to nothing. I stood there in the ruins and laughed. Actually laughed. A high, broken sound that did not sound like it came from me. Because what else do you do when your entire existence has been erased in an afternoon? Haeming was the only other person I found alive. A boy, maybe 9 years old. He was sitting in the middle of the street, surrounded by corpses, just sitting there rocking back and forth. His father Torolf was the one I had heard screaming when Alduin's fire hit him. The boy had watched it happen. When I approached, Haeming did not even look at me. He stared straight ahead at nothing, rocking, humming a tune I recognized. A lullaby his mother used to sing. I tried to talk to him. He did not respond. I touched his shoulder, and he flinched so violently he fell backward. The look in his eyes was not the look of a child. It was the look of something that had seen the end of the world and survived it anyway. I knew that look because I had seen it in my reflection in a puddle of blood. Frida was still under the timber where I had left her, still reaching out, Her hand was extended toward the hole in the wall I had escaped through. She had been alive when I ran. She had died there alone, calling for help that never came, calling my name. The beam had crushed her slowly. I could tell from the way her fingers had clawed grooves in the dirt. I have not said my own name out loud since that day. It feels tainted, like it belongs to the coward who left her there. The guard captain's body was in pieces. I only knew it was him from the armor. The blacksmith, the innkeeper, the old woman who sold vegetables, all dead. Families I had known my entire life, wiped out in less than an hour. 3 generations erased, bloodlines ended, all because a dragon decided our town was in his way. You want to know the worst part? I kept finding survivable injuries, people who could have lived if there had been anyone there to help them. A man with a broken leg who had bled out. A woman who had been trapped under rubble light enough that 2 people could have lifted it, but died there waiting for rescue that never came. They did not die in the attack. They died in the aftermath, slowly, knowing help was not coming. By the time other people arrived from the nearby holds, days later, there was nothing to rescue. Just bodies to bury and ruins to pick through. I was sitting in those ruins when they found me. I had not eaten, had not slept, just sat there staring at the remains of my oven and thinking about bread I would never bake. They asked me what happened. I told them a dragon attacked. They looked at me like I was mad. Dragons were myths, stories, not real things that murdered entire towns. One of them, a Legion soldier, actually laughed, said I must have been drunk when bandits raided the place. Bandits. As if bandits could do this. As if bandits breathed fire and summoned meteors from the sky. But word spreads. Other towns started reporting the same thing. Sightings of dragons flying over Skyrim, circling burial mounds, then attacks, Kinesgrove, Western Watchtower near Whiterun. Suddenly it was not a myth anymore. Suddenly everyone believed. Suddenly people were terrified to leave their homes. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. They told me about the Dragonborn. Whispers at first, then stories, then legends building in real time. Someone who could absorb dragon souls. Someone who could stop them. Someone who could save us. I heard these stories while I was digging graves. While I was burying people, I had known my entire life in mass graves because there were too many to bury individually. While I was picking through ash trying to find anything worth salvaging from my destroyed livelihood. The Dragonborn was out there somewhere, apparently learning to shout, climbing mountains, doing hero things. Good for them. Meanwhile, I was trying to figure out how to survive without a home, without a job, without money, without anything. Because dragons do not just take lives, they take futures. My savings were in a chest in my bakery. That chest was now melted slag. The bread I had baked the morning of the attack that I was planning to sell was ash. The orders I had lined up, the relationships with merchants, the reputation I had built over 20 years, all of it gone. In Skyrim, there is no insurance, no compensation, no safety net. When a dragon destroys everything you own, you simply have nothing. I tried to rebuild, went to Riverwood first because it was close, asked for work, any work, but everyone had heard about Helgen by then, and they looked at me differently. Like I was cursed, like dragon attacks were contagious. Or maybe they saw what I saw when I looked in mirrors, that hollow thing wearing my face, and it frightened them. The nightmares started after the first week. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there. Every time I heard a loud noise, I dropped to the ground, covering my head, waiting for fire from above. The smell of cooking meat made me vomit. The sound of wind through trees sounded like wing beats. I could not be around people because I kept seeing them as corpses. Kept imagining how they would look burning. The worst moments are not the nightmares. They are the times when I forget. When I wake up for just a few seconds and think I need to get to the bakery early, need to prepare the dough, need to check on that order for the Imperial garrison, then I remember, and I have to watch Helgen burn all over again. Fresh, like the first time. This is what they do not tell you about surviving. You do not get to stop surviving. Every single day you have to wake up and remember that everyone you knew is dead. Every single day you have to feel that moment of forgetting and remembering like a knife. Every single day you have to decide whether living is worth this. I hear the stories from other towns. Whiterun nearly lost their Western Watchtower. A dragon attacked right outside the city walls, but the guards fought it off. The Dragonborn killed it. Everyone celebrates. The Jarl throws a feast. Life goes on. They think they understand what dragon attacks are like because they saw one and survived. They do not understand. Whiterun had walls, had guards, had warning, had the Dragonborn show up at exactly the right moment like some kind of divine intervention. Helgen had none of that. We had a wall that meant nothing. We had guards who died like everyone else. We had no warning and no hero. We had extermination. When people talk about the dragon crisis now, they talk about the Dragonborn's adventures, the epic battles, the shouts learned, the ancient prophecies fulfilled. They do not talk about the civilians, about the shopkeepers and farmers and children who were just in the wrong place when history decided to happen. We are footnotes, collateral damage, acceptable losses in someone else's story. I finally found work in Folkreath. The innkeeper there needed someone to help in the kitchen. She did not ask many questions. Maybe she knew I could not answer them without breaking. The pay was terrible, a fraction of what I made with my own bakery, but it was something. It kept me fed. It kept me from thinking too much, except I thought anyway, all the time, obsessively. I thought about Frida's hand reaching out. I thought about the sound Torolf made when he burned. I thought about Haming's empty eyes. I thought about my choice to run. I thought about whether I was a coward or a survivor, or if there was even a difference. I thought about how many people I could have saved if I had been braver, stronger, better. I thought about how I would probably make the same choice again because I wanted to live more than I wanted to be a hero. The drinking started around month 2. Mead at first, then wine, then whatever was cheapest and strongest. It helped. For a few hours I could stop seeing corpses everywhere, could stop flinching at shadows, could pretend I was a person instead of a ghost haunting someone else's life. But you cannot drink away memory. It always comes back. And it brings friends. I started avoiding people, stopped talking unless I had to. When the inn got crowded, I would hide in the storage room until the noise died down because too many voices sounded like screaming. I could not sleep in beds anymore. Too confined, too much like being trapped. I slept on the floor in corners where I could see both doors, just in case the sky opened up and fire rained down again. Other survivors started appearing, not from Helgen, there were so few of us, but from other attacks. A farmer whose fields were burned, a merchant whose caravan was destroyed, a mother whose child was killed when a dragon attacked their village. We recognized each other somehow. Something in the eyes, the way we watched the sky too much, the way we could not relax even in safe places because we knew safety was an illusion. We did not talk about it much. What was there to say? We were alive, and everyone else was dead, and dragons were real, and the world was more terrible than we had ever imagined. Those were just facts now. You cannot commiserate about facts. You just live with them, or you do not. Haming ended up with a hunter named Froki. I saw him once, months after Helgen. He had grown, not taller, not physically, but older in ways children should not be older. He was learning to hunt, to survive in the wilderness, to kill things before they killed him. He did not recognize me. Or maybe he did and chose not to. Maybe he did not want to remember anyone from that day. I understood that. The Dragonborn killed Alduin eventually. I heard the stories. Epic battle at the throat of the world. Then in Sovngarde itself, the Nordic afterlife. The World Eater was dead. The crisis was over. People celebrated in the streets. The bards wrote songs. Everything was going to be fine now. Except dragons still attacked. Because Alduin was not the only dragon. Because he had resurrected dozens of them, and they were still out there, still hungry, still hostile. The Dragonborn could not be everywhere at once, could not protect every village and farm and road. People still died, just fewer of them. And apparently, that was close enough to victory. But for those of us who survived the attacks, nothing was over. The dragon that killed your family being dead does not bring them back. Alduin being defeated does not rebuild your town, or restore your livelihood, or erase the sound of screaming from your memory. You are still broken. The world is still broken. You just have to pretend to be fixed because everyone else has moved on. I think about leaving sometimes, going to Cyrodiil or Hammerfell or anywhere that is not Skyrim, somewhere without dragons. But I have no money for that kind of journey. And even if I did, I do not think distance would help. You cannot outrun what is inside your head. The dragons live there now, rent-free, forever. So I work. I pour drinks and serve food and pretend to be alive. I avoid looking up at the sky too much. I keep a bag packed by the door in case I need to run. I do not make friends because friends are just future corpses waiting to happen. I do not plan for the future because the future is a lie that dragons can erase in minutes. I exist in a permanent present tense of survival. This is what happens to civilians during dragon attacks in Skyrim. You die or you wish you did. You lose everything, and there is no one to compensate you, no hero to save you, no happy ending. You lose your home, your livelihood, your loved ones, your sanity. You lose the ability to feel safe anywhere, ever again. You lose the person you used to be, and if you are very unlucky, like me, you survive. You live with the trauma and the guilt and the memories that never fade. You live in a world where dragons can return at any time and destroy everything all over again. You live knowing that to the people writing the history books, the songs, the legends, you do not matter. You are just background noise in someone else's epic tale. You are collateral damage, and you wake up every morning anyway, because somehow your body refuses to stop, and you go through another day of pretending this is living, when really, it is just a very slow way of dying. That is what happens to civilians during a dragon attack in Skyrim. Now you know, and I hope you never have to understand it the way I do.